Within weeks, blood returned to the Brooklyn pavement. The gallows convinced that Carmine, the snake Persico as they were now calling him, had betrayed them during the 1961 strangling attempt, prepared a car bomb, the old underworld solution for problems that could not be solved face to face. Persico was the target and by all rights should have died on March the 17th, 1963, but he left the car only moments before it exploded, a twist of chance that reinforced his reputation for being immortal, which was a nickname along with the snake that he would have for life. But the gallows didn't let up. In May 1963, the war hit one of its most critical points when Carmine Persico and Alphonse D'Ambrosio, known as Funzy D, the brother of Sally D, were ambushed on Bond Street while getting into a car outside a Brooklyn bar. Another car pulled up alongside them and opened fire without a word. Bullets tore through the windows. Funzy D was hit in the hand and shoulder. Persico survived the wounds to his hand, shoulder and neck, but any of the shots could have killed him. Both men dove to the pavement and managed to crawl to safety as the shooters sped off. The attack made headlines immediately. Newspapers ran front-page stories about mock gunmen firing in broad daylight, and detectives publicly acknowledged that the Gallo-Profaci conflict was no longer a contained feud. It had become a full-scale war spilling onto Brooklyn streets. The shooting underscored two things. The gallows were still willing to take direct shots at the Profaci leadership, and the Profaci leadership would return fire. The bloodletting became relentless. On the 13th of June, Vincent Bertucci, a Profaci soldier, was shot 5 times with a pistol and died instantly. Police detained Gallo crew member Gennaro Geribasciano, but released him for lack of evidence. 6 days later, on June the 19th, Alfred Mandela, a 41-year-old retired longshoreman of whom no photograph survived, was sitting outside his home in a beach chair when a man walked up, levelled a gun, and fired. Mandela had supplied weapons to the gallows, and now he was the latest casualty of the war, and the summer heat brought no relief. On July the 24th, Joe Gallo's old bodyguard Ali Baba was gunned down on the Hoboken docks in New Jersey, 3 bullets to the stomach as he stepped off the cruise ship. The suspects were Joseph Joe Iacovelli and Carmine DiBiase, known as Sonny Pinto, and both of them were aligned to the Profaci crew. Then came August the 9th, 1963. Joseph Bascardiello, a veteran soldier who had shifted allegiances too many times, was driving through Brooklyn when his car was riddled with bullets. He died instantly. That same day, Profaci loyalists struck back. On Route 347 in Port Jefferson, Louis Cadillac Louis Mariani was driving down on what is now the Nesconset Highway in front of the Nesconset Shopping Centre in Long Island when Anthony Fat Tony Regina and John Moose Batista, 2 Profaci crew members, opened fire on his car. The shooting left Cadillac Louis dead at the age of 26. Regina and Batista were later arrested, convicted, and sentenced to life in prison. Brooklyn newspapers began to call it the year of the guns. By now, the FBI and NYPD had counted over 30 killings linked to the Profaci-Gallo feud. Every few weeks, a new name appeared in the papers, each accompanied by the same pattern: a car, a flash, a scream, a quote from the police about underworld tensions. No one outside the families knew precisely who was winning, and inside the families, everyone had lost something. As 1963 waned, the war's momentum slowed, not because anyone had triumphed, but because both sides were absolutely exhausted. Too many shooters were dead, too many soldiers in hiding or behind bars. By the end of 1963, Joseph Malioko's control of the old Profaci family was collapsing. His health was failing, his grip on the crew was weak, and he was increasingly isolated. In that vulnerability, he made the worst decision of his career. Malioco secretly aligned himself with Joseph Bonanno, who was facing his own decline and growing resentment toward the Commission. Together, they devised an extraordinary plan to assassinate several Commission members, Carlo Gambino, Tommy Lucchese, Stefano Magaddino, and Frank Di Simone, and reshape the mafia's hierarchy in their favour. Malioco was assigned the job of killing Gambino and Lucchese, and he passed the contract to one of his top men, Joseph Colombo. But Colombo had absolutely no intention of carrying out the hit, which would have been suicide. Instead, he quietly went to Gambino and Lucchese and exposed the entire plot. He understood immediately that Malioco would take the blame, but Bonanno, the true architect, would be the real target. The Commission moved fast. Bonanno ignored the summons and fled to Montreal, leaving Malioco alone to answer for the conspiracy. Shaken and in poor health, Malioco confessed. Commission spared his life, but he was forced to step down as boss and pay a $50,000 fine. He retired quietly, and within months, December 28, 1963 to be exact, he died of a heart attack on Long Island. Colombo, meanwhile, was rewarded for his loyalty. Gambino elevated the 41-year-old to boss of the former Propublica family, becoming the first American-born boss of a New York crime family, a move that shocked New York and effectively ended the old order of Mustache Pete's. What had begun as a desperate power grab instead created the Colombo crime family and set the stage for the next chapter of the Gallo War. For Colombo, it was a remarkable rise from mid-level capo to mafia boss in a single conversation, but it also signalled a generational shift. The cautious, calculating Gambino wanted stability, and Colombo, at least on the surface, offered that. For the Gallo brothers, it meant that their oldest enemy had been replaced by a younger, more pragmatic one, but for now, the war fizzled out. Because by the mid-1960s, Brooklyn had changed. The docks were no longer the empire that they had been under the Anastasias, and the neighbourhoods that once supplied soldiers to both sides were now feeding the city's new youth movements. The Gallo crew, or what was left of it, had aged, scattered, or adapted. Larry, increasingly introspective and quietly ill, kept his routines simple. Albert Kid Blast handled what little business remained, and Joe, still behind bars, watched it all unfold